Good to see you, man. It's an exciting time in the world. You and I are, film buffs as well as sports fanatics, and one of the great filmmakers of all time. Certainly, I think maybe the greatest filmmaker of our lifetime, Steven Spielberg, and USC trustee, released Disclosure Day, which has started a conversation about, aliens. And are there aliens on our planet? Do aliens live amongst us? Trump had something very similar. He released the UFO files, so that also created a national conversation about aliens. But we've also been living through something, which is that we've seen an alien, I think, in real life at Madison Square Garden. And his name is Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah. Yes, the alien goes to Mecca is the most religion of sports, Sportuality story of all times. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Feels like we're at the beginning of something. And it's going to be a long, enjoyable ride, I hope.
Nicknames are important. Every nickname sort of tells you about someone, and at their best, they become that person, like Magic Johnson. My daughter didn't know that his name wasn't Magic Johnson. Like she didn't realize that was his nickname. We've had so many great ones: The Truth, The Answer, Black Mamba, etc. It sounds like Wemby's nickname will be the alien. It's something he has embraced himself. He said, I'm just a human, or am I? So he's really playing around with this idea.
Yeah.
And so today we're going to go deep into this notion, into this question, into this theme, into this reality.
Yeah.
Is Wemby an alien?
So as soon as we chose this topic, one person came to mind for me, an old friend, but also a brilliant writer, and Ramona Shelburne. She recently wrote this article about Victor's off-season and his visiting of this Shaolin Monastery someplace in obscure part of China, and I knew we just had to have her. Joining us is Ramona Shelburne, who I have to say is a pal of mine now, going back, I'm thinking like Ramona, let's see, Kobe days, so 10 years almost?
15, man, 15.
Time goes.
Yeah, it's 2026, Gotham. So Kobe retired in 2016, okay? Wow. So that's 10 years ago, and we definitely knew each other for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 or 5 years before that.
Wow. Yeah, and I've been on your show many times, but this is the first time you're joining on mine, so I'm pumped.
And Ramona, I gotta say, you've been my therapist in the dark wilderness of Clippers fandom, and I can't thank you enough for that. And at some point, maybe I can commiserate with you in person, but thank you for shining a light in the darkest places when we needed it most.
But so this episode is about Wemby, and this idea that he's taken on this nickname of the alien, and it's been incredible watching him. You wrote this amazing article, which we're going to talk about, because that obviously, for obvious reasons, deeply resonated with us, with me, and just reading about that experience. So I guess, but let's start with physically, why do people call him the alien? You've been around the league now, you're covering him, covered the finals. Why do people call this guy the alien?
I think it's because of first of all, I think he's 7'5", he might be 7'6", so that's really tall. There are guys, like Joel Embiid, I think is 7'3", he's pretty tall. But Wemby is another 2-3 inches above him, and you don't see many guys that height who come into the league, first of all. And then the ones who are that tall, they're not able to move like he does. Most of them can't stay healthy. They get foot injuries, they have back injuries, they have other stuff, just because the body, I think we've passed the normal limits of human existence. I don't know what 1 percentile that would be of how many people in the world are 7'5", 7'6", but I would imagine it's probably less than 1%. And so that's very unique, but also the way he moves. Sometimes I watch him play and it's like Kevin Durant out there. And Kevin Durant Kevin Durant doesn't like to say he's 7 feet tall, but I think he is. He's a guy that has guard skills as a 7-footer. That's becoming more prevalent in the NBA, but to have somebody another 5-6 inches taller than that be able to move the way Wemby does is really unique. And it's also, I don't know how much of you watched of him doing his flexibility exercises. He can do the forward splits, he can do the side splits. I just came from hot yoga. I can't do all of the poses, but I think he could. right? Like we did full wheel today, and I was like huffing and puffing, and I could kind of get up there for 2 seconds. I bet Wemby could do it in 2 seconds. And I think he's just incredibly flexible, and he knows how to use that body type. And so you just really don't see those set of characteristics as in anyone, let alone a guy as talented as he is at basketball.
I mean, so many people talk about how at 7'5", 7'6", he can shoot like Steph, he can dribble like Kyrie, he moves like a guard. But in my lifetime, he's the greatest, I think, defensive player I've ever seen. He can block like Mutombo. He can cover so much ground. Even when he has a bad game, I remember the game 1 against the Timberwolves where he was really down on himself. He had 12 blocks. Yeah. I'd never seen 12 blocks. And so he's so down on himself, and yet he's put forward like the greatest defensive performance in one of them in playoff histories. It seems like as a defender, his floor is just so high that no matter what you get on offense, we've never even seen anything like him every night on defense.
What's interesting is he said when he won Defensive Player of the Year that at one point growing up, he actually was not very good on defense. He was just tall. Okay, so when you're tall, you can just stick your hands up and intimidate shots, and to some extent, just be a good defender just because of that. But he has really studied defense. Like he's understood how to bait people into going one way, and then even sometimes when somebody gets by him, you notice that I think sometimes he lets them go by him because he's going to do the chase down block. Like you think you've got to step on him, and then he intimidates the shot from behind. But mostly when you watch him defensively, it's the center of gravity that he creates and how far out it extends. So, he's usually somewhere near the basket, but anywhere from 2 or 3 feet in front of the basket where he is, out towards like the wings, where the elbow, where if he's running at you with his outstretched arms, I mean, okay, he's 7'5", and then he puts his arm up, so that's about 10 feet.
Jeez.
Right?
Yeah.
10 or 11 feet that you got to shoot over. How tall is the rim?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, we're just doing the math here. Like you have to, he just alters so many shots, and guys get anywhere near him, and you really can't get the ball up over him. I've seen people try floaters and teardrops over him, and he still gets them because the angle that he's coming at you and the angle you're launching the ball, like it just turns everything into a completely different proposition. And most players he just intimidates. They just pass it out.
So that's like the physical aspect. Check. I think we clearly, anybody 8-foot wingspan also.
Yeah.
I've read
Dunks without jumping.
Yeah. So like all that. You also kind of touched on like the mental aspect. He's, especially for his age, like this like strategy, the way he looks at the game, the way he studies the game, the way he's obsessed with chess. He reads all these books. Like he's a really,
he does math.
Very like cerebral, like, beyond his years. He's really like a student of not just the game, but of all these other disciplines. So, that seems to be, especially at that age, another alien-like quality that differentiates him from others.
And the thing what really, of course, attracted us to your article is you went on a deep dive on his journey to the Shaolin Monastery this summer, where he went deep into Kung Fu, where he went into Buddhist meditation practice, where he studied in a tradition that goes back to the 5th century. And he did that in order to work on his inner game, and so yes, he's a physical alien in the sense that we've never seen anything like him, but in some ways he's kind of a spiritual alien too, in the inner work he's doing at 22 years old. And so we would love, to learn a little bit more about what you learned in writing this article about who Wemby is and how he got to this place.
I'm working on myself all the time, right? Like Gotham, I know you write, you've done a lot of work on this as well. Being able to control your thoughts, being able to observe your thoughts and not react to them, or react to them in the time that's appropriate, as opposed to just emotionally reacting to them. All of that is something that great players sometimes have innately, but it's a whole nother level when you actually train your mind to do that. Right? So great players are able to compartmentalize. They have a competitive streak. They can block other things out. They can focus in. They can find their confidence and their center when things get loud. But it's not always something that they necessarily study. Do you understand the difference? Yeah. Like, it's not something they study and work on. Like, somebody can take you through a guided meditation. Somebody can take you through, you can sit there and have somebody, use their voice to help you get to that meditative place. But that's still with assistance. But for him to be at his age, all the way across the world, and you're in this incredibly monastic environment. He's pushing 3 beds together because he's so long, he's asleep. I mean, eating a very Spartan monastic diet, just vegetables and steamed buns and stuff. And then you sit in a room with 100 other monks, and it's a silent meditation. And the only way you know when it's going to end is burning this thing of incense. So there's a short wick and then there's a long wick. So it could be 30 minutes, it could be 90 minutes. But for somebody that age, 7'5", nobody's guiding him through this meditation. He had to find his way through. And he signed up for this and then did this every single day, a couple times a day. I mean, I was just blown away by the bravery of that. That's really the word, is the bravery, because, we talk about a leap of faith, but this is, that's not a leap. That's like a
plunge.
2-week commitment to being totally uncomfortable. And I like to talk even in my own life. Like whenever I go on a diet, I go, oh man, one of the hardest parts of the diet is I'm going to feel my feelings now. I'm not going to eat my feelings. I'm going to feel my feelings. Right? Well, that's what meditation does. And at least if you have somebody guiding you, somebody's there with you, you're not alone. But he was alone. Like, I know you're in a room with 100 other people, but no one's saying anything and no one's moving. That's you in the room alone, forced to confront whatever comes up. And this kid at 21 years old did that for 2 weeks.
Can we dial back to I don't know if you know, but the intention behind that? What led him to do this at this age? I mean, as you know, I've worked with a lot of athletes, and they're definitely, we'll talk about some comps, but it's usually at the end of their careers, and they have perspective, and they have complicated lives because they're married, or whatever's going on. They have fame they're dealing with, etc. But to do it at 21, like you said, but I'm wondering what was the goal for him?
So there were two sides of this. There was like there are in Kung Fu. Okay. Number one, I think physically, I think he understands that his body type cannot add strength by just lifting weights. He can't just put on a bunch of muscle. He's going to get hurt. I mean, he can't carry that much weight because he's already so tall. So he's always had a very deep understanding of his body that he needs to, if he's going to get stronger, he has to find other ways to get stronger. And what better way to learn how to be more physical and strong than Kung Fu, which is generating force from within, which is using your chi, which is using your mind and your energy to create force in a different way. And so I think a lot of it he was drawn to was the physicality of it. But when I spoke to, they would call him Shifu. I think that I used the term master in the story because it's sort of the English translation of that. But Master Yanan, he said to me, the way you generate that force externally is by being strong internally, by bringing in all the energy and mindfulness through meditation, through that type of work, right? And I think Victor understood that he is trying to do something that no one else has ever done. I think he really believes that he can be the best basketball player ever. And so if you're going someplace that no one else has ever gone, you have to push yourself to uncomfortable places. And that's one of the things that I have recognized in him that reminds me a lot of Kobe, is that they are willing to try completely different things outside of their comfort zone, not just something they're going to naturally be good at, but to do something different, to see something different, to push themselves farther in pursuit of being the best there ever was. Because I think in their mind, their internal wiring, the only thing worse than losing is not achieving what you are capable of doing, is leaving something on the table, leaving something undone. And I think Kobe always had that. Gotham, I know you've done, the movie on him, really. And I've written, not the book, but some of the definitive stories. And what I always felt with him was that relentlessness. It bordered on restlessness. There was a sort of hole that he was trying to fill, that restlessness. There's something there. There's usually a wound that somebody's trying to fill by being this other person, by being this all-time great, by achieving. I don't know what that is with Victor yet. I don't know if he has that. I don't feel it from him when I'm around him. He feels very centered and grounded to me, and that's something completely different than other guys that I have covered at this level.
But he does have Kobe's hyper competitiveness, right? I remember when he was in the World Cup final game in France. He's of course from France, playing the gold medal game, and it took 3 of the top 15 basketball players of all time to giving everything they had to take him out. You know, LeBron, Steph, and all-time performance by Steph and Kevin Durant. And he felt, and yet I felt like Victor felt like he was going to win that game, and he was crying when he didn't win that game. He went in with at 19 or 20 with such a high sense of self and a spirit of competition that it was almost like a Mamba-like approach, even though it came from a different place, where he may feel centered, he may be working on his mind, he may be going into Buddhist practice, he may understand the impermanence of it all and his place in the universe. And yet he still has seemingly a killer instinct in the midst of it all.
Yeah. So let's talk about Buddhism, though, right? I mean, Victor, when he left there, he said, "I guess I'm a Buddhist now." I mean, didn't he? He had a comment after that. I do think he has a quality, and Buddhists, obviously he had to have protein while he was there, so he would sneak out of the temple. It wasn't sneaking. He had a car that would come pick him up. And they would drive him outside the temple walls because they don't kill things there. It's a vegan temple. They only have plant-based food. And he would have the car drive him out, and he would go, and somebody would. I wish there was a great story of what kind of food he would eat, but I was told they just ordered from a local restaurant, or kind of went around. And they would bring him like I'm picturing a takeout container, okay? And he would eat in the car, and then, but there was this respect for the temple rules where he would make sure to throw anything away before the car drove back in, which I thought was interesting, and respectful. And so I think I'm bringing this up because you used the term killer instinct. If you're a Buddhist, it's hard to reconcile killer instinct, right?
It is. It is because
it doesn't go. Yeah.
It depends on, I think, the framing of it, but you're absolutely right. Buddhism warns us about our own ego. It basically is an illusion. And so this idea of the opponent, about ourselves, about, that comes from vanity and greed. Those are the negative afflictive emotions. So you're right. A Buddhist would be more sort of passive in some ways, not get too emotional about one outcome or the other. In a way, he is very emotional. He'll cry if he wins, he'll cry if he loses. He wears it on his sleeve, which is kind of, I think we all love that about him. And yet, Buddhism also tells us that your mind makes a better servant than master. And if you're the master of your mind, then ultimately your mindset is more important than your skill set. And in that respect, I think he's very Buddhist, because we've seen with all the great athletes, you may not have the best skill set. Even Kobe would say he may not have been the biggest or the fastest or the strongest, but his mindset is what made him great. And across the GOATs, the mindset is really what is the differentiating factor.
And I think Victor has that in spades. I really do. I think he just has a different mindset, which is why somebody like me or Gotham or people who tell these kind of stories, why we're so interested in him, because they don't come around very often. You see great players, you see really talented players, people who work hard, there's plenty of those. But that level of mind is something special, and I'm intrigued by him. I don't know everything yet, but I was intrigued by this embrace of Buddhism, and I don't know if it was just for mental strength. There was this story that the monk told me. He was a Shaolin warrior monk. I feel weird just calling him a monk, right? He's really a kung fu master.
A multi-generational teacher, right? He's part of this tradition that goes all the way back.
Oh, he's like the 34th generation Shaolin monk. I mean, it goes all the way back. And that nighttime hike that they went on, and it was Victor's idea. I mean, Victor said, "I want to do something where I work on my awareness." on my awareness. Like, wow, okay. And the Master Yanan thought about it, and he said, okay, we're going to do something at night. And this is like after their nighttime meditation. This is normally when you'd be going to sleep. I think they usually go to bed about 9 or 10 o'clock. And so all the lights are off. Victor had 2 staffers with him. One was his trainer, Guillaume, and another was a security guy or Spurs trainer. And they were there just kind of to be there with him. Guillaume went through a lot of the training with him too. And they all were like, I don't know if this is safe, right? Like from what I gathered from talking to Master Yunan, he said, we're going at night. All we have is the moonlight in our eyes and our senses. I should go back and check to see if it was a full moon or a quarter moon, or if I was a really good reporter, I would have done that. Because I could tell you it was the 6th night he was there, so we could look that up. But when you go for a nighttime hike, eventually your eyes adjust. And this walk that they had made during the day, he's so tall and he's so athletic, he can get up and down those stairs pretty quickly. But at night, you have to be really, really careful. You have to feel every step. Some are long, and some are tall, some are short. They're not even. And I think it was a little dangerous. I'm picturing falling off the side of a mountain. It's not quite that. It's more like fall down the stairs. If you take a wrong step, you would definitely get hurt, but I don't think you would die. But, there's a sort of, they were very quiet. The way that this hike was described to me, it was almost like a moving meditation where you just have to rely on your senses. And I really think about that a lot now when I watch Victor play. The way he takes a breath at the free throw line, the way he feels contact, the way he moves within contact. He always seems like he's under control. There are a few moments. I mean, in the first round when he was so amped up, he got out over his skis, and that's when he has the concussion, the part where he falls. That's I see him sometimes. He generates such force, and he's so tall. He kind of gets over his skis and he can fall. He loses balance, and that is how he hit his head on the floor. And then I thought physically he reacted to Minnesota's pressure where he elbows Naz Reid, and some of that Oklahoma City series. He did the same thing where he gets a little too physical. But I think that's also. I think he's very aware of what he's doing. I don't think he's out of control there. I think he's just trying to respond in the appropriate way so they don't shove him around.
Because Victor is now undoubtedly the star of stars, the face of the league, the most interesting man in the world, all those things. When Kobe was on top, when Tom Brady was on top, when others were on top, other athletes wanted to be like them. I want the Mamba mentality. I want to train like Tom. I want to do X, Y, and Z because my heroes did X, Y, and Z. Do you think now players are going to want to train with Shaolin monks and play chess and do math and read books, French existential philosophy?
I mean, it's funny because all of these things are actually old school, right? I mean,
literally,
if you think about it, he reads.
Yeah, that's right. He's just like us.
He does math.
That's right.
There's been plenty of sort of scholar athletes. There's been plenty of sort of intellectual athletes in the past. But we live in this generation where everyone's on their phone all the time and scrolling social media, that this feels like such an anomaly.
It's more about us. That's more of an indictment of us than it is,
it really is
something of praise about him.
I know athletes. Aaron Gordon, I think, went to the Shaolin Temple. I think he met the monks, but I don't think he trained with them the way that Victor did. This was really an immersive experience. So I could see other people doing it. Yeah, I think people would want to get, first of all, the rest of the league is now kind of wrecked, like mentally, because anytime you're trying to team build, you're thinking about, well, what do we do if we face Victor? Like, I mean, literally he's in the back of everyone's head now. Like he's that guy looming in the key. Like, can I get the shot off? Because you can do like if you're the Lakers and you're like, oh, should we keep LeBron or should we keep Austin Reeves? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, how are you going to beat Wemby?
What I observe, and what I've certainly observed in others that you may compare, like Kobe, is it's an obsession. It's not like there's a difference between meditating, like you said, doing the guided meditations for 10 minutes a day versus then going, and I suspect he's doing it every day. Like, it's an obsession. And I mean, you knew this, like, I don't know if I ever told you the story about Kobe, but like, Kobe told me this crazy story about like watching a National Geographic video, a documentary on cheetahs. I don't know if I've sent you this video that I have, like from the cutting room floor of Muse, but like, it's incredible because he saw basketball, or everything he saw, he framed through the lens of basketball. And it was like, how can I get better? How is this going to affect my game? In a kind of an unhealthy way. Like, that's the thing too. Like, there's something inherently almost like narcissistic about, this sort of obsession. And so, yes, there are other players who love basketball and stuff, but like the degree by which at this age, this kid, seems like a kid to me, is like my son's age, is so obsessed with his craft that is willing to go to the other side of the planet and just obsess over it. I just think that is hard to replicate. Sure, people will be interested in some of these things, maybe dabble in them, but I don't see Anthony Edwards, sort of pursuing this lifestyle. That's what it is.
No.
It's really a consistency and a lifestyle. And I, as somebody, you were close to Kobe, I was close to him. I would be in his orbit for a few days where we'd be emailing or texting deep into the night. And then I'd go to sleep. Let's say it's like 2, 3 in the morning and he's on a plane somewhere and we're writing back and forth. And then at some point I go to bed, right? Yeah. Like it's late. Yeah. And then I wake up and there's like 4 more text messages from him. And I'm like, when did he sleep? Yeah. Right? And I have this around the clock quality when you can get in there for a few days. And then after a while, I'm like, okay, I need to go back to normal life where I go to bed at midnight and I get up at 7 or 8, whatever it is. And like, I have some balance to my life. And back then I didn't have kids, but I was, I think I was more unbalanced as a person back then. I don't think I had as much of who I am and what I do outside of work. And I think that's partially why I was closer to Kobe, because I think he recognized that we were kindred spirits. That way we were sort of obsessed with work or obsessed with being great at something. Victor's like that. And right now his life is fairly uncomplicated. He doesn't have a family yet. His parents are in San Antonio. I think he has a really nice house and stuff, but he's really, his entire existence is built around being the best basketball player ever.
He seems like he's an alien because he has these physical and spiritual gifts and talents and aspirations that we haven't seen before. You both see a lot of Kobe in him. Of course, when I look at him, though, the comp I see is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because Kareem was very similar to him physically, more a finesse player than bulky. I think they changed the rules in college that you couldn't dunk because of him. He had a sky hook, which was literally the unstoppable shot. But he also, converted to Islam, trained with Bruce Lee, did yoga, wrote 12 books. Is apparently a really good chess player. Yeah, exactly. He's a great chess player. So maybe I was too young to really appreciate Kareem in his heyday, but maybe people talked about Kareem in an alien framing in the way that we're talking about Wemby. Maybe that is a similar comp, but Wemby's doing it in his own way at a very different time and place in the world and at a very young age. I
think you're absolutely right about the Kareem comp. But there's one really important difference, is that Kareem had a shyness to him. He was inward. He did all of those things to work on himself, but he was not open to the rest of the world, or even maybe sometimes his teammates. And I think now it's interesting, he's become more of a public intellectual, but he's not out giving speeches necessarily. He's writing, which is, as a writer, I feel that way myself too. It's different when you're writing. There, there's the page and there's the product that you've written, but it's not you. Or it's you, but it's behind there's a wall there still. With Victor, I feel like he's open. I don't feel like he's keeping the world out or putting guardrails up. And Kareem, there's a lot of, if you've read about him or if you know him at all, there's a lot of reasons why he had his guard up, okay, and why he was shy. And but some of those, are the racism he encountered growing up. Some of that is just the world he grew up in. Some of that, I think, is, we have this trope of the tall man syndrome, the tall guy. Like, a lot of centers are kind of lonely and they don't necessarily have a lot of I don't see that from Victor at all. I think the guy is very popular in that locker room. He's the one leading the cheers with the Jackals. He kind of created the Jackals, which is a very European soccer star kind of thing. So maybe he's like a 21st century European version of Kareem. He seems like a much more open person.
He's one of one, and I mean, again, it goes back to the original premise of being an alien. He's otherworldly, not literally, or perhaps, who knows, but like definitely figuratively. And Yeah, I think it's going to be so much fun to watch.
Yeah. In Los Angeles, John Ireland is our radio host here. He keeps comparing him to Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. I think that's a pretty good comp just in how unique their skill set is and how dominant they are. But what do we know about Shohei?
Yeah, nothing.
He's got a dog named Decoy. I mean, we don't know much about him. He's not open at all. He keeps all of it inside. He's very guarded and protective. There's a lot of walls up around him. That's why Victor's just so unique to me. Like there's, he's not about, he does wear Louis Vuitton, okay?
He's French.
He does cultivate an aura of mystery. Like he'll give you, he's got that Kobe-like thing. You know how Kobe wrote his own ads for Nike? He wrote his own mythology. He wrote his own story. Victor kind of does too. He kind of understands that quality. And yet you still feel like you're connected to him the same way I would with Kobe. Like you and I would talk about this. Lee Jenkins would talk about this. Whenever you do a story with Kobe, like you have an idea of what the story is going to be, and you have to work really hard to keep him on track because he has a whole other idea of what the story is going to be. And he's so good, you just turn the tape recorder on, you're like, well, I guess I'll write about that because that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be super fun to watch just him evolve, not just as a player, but as a human being. And I'm excited. I've been more excited to watch him play. And this idea of the alien going to Mecca, there's nothing more religion of sports than this story. So I think it's going to play itself out. And
also, I sent you the photo of him, grabbing the nun the other day and putting his head to her. I think he's just respectful of all spirituality.
Awesome, Ramona. Thank you so much.
Thank you enough for this conversation.
Amazing.
Thanks so much. We'll see you down the road.
All right.
That was awesome.
That was awesome, and I'm excited because I feel like I've known Ramona for a long time. But again, this is sort of stuff she and I have talked about. We've definitely gone out for lunch and compared our Kobe notes.
You're like the Kobe whisperers.
Yeah, but it's cool just to have this platform, frankly, for people like her who can come in and talk in a different way. So, but that could have gone on forever, and she's just, like you said, such a pro.
Well, I love how she really went deep into the idea of what is an alien and his
she
Buddhist
tested
practice. She really pushed
Buddhist.
us on Buddhism and this question of how do you reconcile a Buddhist point of view with a killer instinct is really it's a really good question to really reflect on. Yeah. As I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking about, well, what is an alien? We're just throwing this term around like we all know what it means, but it means different things in different contexts. Is Wemby an alien? Well, he's a legal alien. He's French. He's French citizen, but he's here, presumably on a work visa. He definitely qualify for an O1 if you ever want to do outstanding, singular human being visa. In the legal sense, alien now is such a contested term. It's become so weaponized in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I think when people think of alien, they just go to extraterrestrial, which is the science alien who comes from outer space, and now there's a lot happening in the world around that. Sure. And that's a really powerful idea. Like, are there aliens living among us? And is Wemby one of those aliens? There's this idea of the Pleiadians who come from a distant star cluster who are aliens on Earth, and it's sort of a new age idea. And they might not even realize that they're aliens, but they're here to help us. They're almost like bodhisattvas. They're here to help us be better human beings. They're here to protect us. Maybe Wemby is like an alien who doesn't know he's an alien. He's actually an extraterrestrial from another planet. Religion also has different ideas about aliens. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, there's a lot of planets. There are a lot of beings. There are sentient beings on different planets. So built into Hinduism and built into Buddhism are the ideas of aliens. You and I could be reincarnated on a different planet in a different life form within the Buddhist and Hindu context. And so I think even some traditions accept the idea of aliens. What I was thinking about, though, is why he's an alien is because he's foreign to us. The stuff he's talking about and doing is foreign to us. It's not every player who is going to study Buddhism, who is going deep into their own mindset, who is watching the nature of their own mind. It's certainly not every player who has quotes like Wemby's quotes. When you read Wemby's quotes, it's like reading quotes of the Buddha. The one that I really loved is this quote that he gave. I think it was in 2019. It was when 2021, when he was 19, when he first came into the league, and he said, sorry, it's 2023. He was 21 years old, 19 years old. He first came in the league. So he's a 19-year-old. First press conference coming in the league, he said, "My totem is bigger than basketball." What 19-year-old even knows what totem is unless they're studying Freud? My totem is bigger than basketball. I am free in the universe. I mean, dude, I tell myself this sometimes. I'm like, what would Wemby say? I'm free in the universe. I do whatever I can, and I know what I want to do, and nothing is going to stop me from doing it. Like, this is an incredible point of view for a 19-year-old who is laser focused on a goal, but also unencumbered by the pressure of that goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he's actually an alien. He's an alien because that is unfamiliar to us. He's an alien because not all of us are able to do that. He's an alien because he's not caught up in performance, he's caught up in purpose. And so many of us judge ourselves based on our performance. And if all we do is have a performance-based mindset, we're always going to be anxious. We're always going to feel like we're less than. And that's what keeps us up at night. But what gets us up in the morning is purpose. And Wemby is fully on that bandwagon. He said, this year, I want to win so badly, it's like my life depends on it. That's the purpose of his life, is, right, as he would say in France, his raison d'etre, his reason for being, right? And that is, I think, why he's an alien. Because all of us live in an anxiety-induced world of performance, where he lives in this life-affirming world of purpose. And what the science of purpose tells us is that if you have a purpose-driven life, you're more likely to be successful at work. You're more likely to have a higher self-worth. You're more likely to have a higher net worth. And the gerontologists tell us that if you have a purpose-based life, you're more you could add 7 years to your lifespan. Like, this is actually giving us life. And he is an alien because I think he represents that.
Well, actually, that's the key, right? He represents that. Listen, he is 21 years old. You know, we are imposing a lot of our own aspirations, a lot of our own vision of our higher selves onto him, I think. Like, I think we probably need to take a chill pill with this kid.
I'm all in on this kid.
21 years old, because,
I'm riding or dying
and
with
I
him.
think, you know, like Ramona, and you just said it too, he's unencumbered by some of life's complications, you know, children, relationships, like all of the things, you know, I think I said this earlier, it's like there's something inherently narcissistic about the spiritual pursuit of enlightenment, about self-awareness. And right now, he has that, you know, it's wide open for him. And so the purpose of his life can be about winning at all costs, you know. Winning at all, there are costs. Like, you see it, I've seen it, you know, Kobe and his 5 championships, Tom Brady and his 7 Super Bowls, Serena and her 23, you know, Grand Slam victories. It comes at a cost. And, you know, the cost can be devastating personally. And you have to sort of weigh that, you know, with this idea now we live in a world of, we're constantly in search of balance and work-life balance. Well, you know, the people who achieve greatness at the highest levels don't necessarily have balance, but they're sort of okay with that. So,
and maybe that's what's also alien to us, the choosing to live that kind of life, to sacrifice that much, to pay the cost for greatness. I wouldn't do that, you know. I want to just hang out with my kids and get on my bike and kind of find that balance and find that, you know, space where I'm living with ease, but that doesn't lead to greatness.
Yeah. Well, and I think also true greatness is longevity, doing it consistently over and over and over again. Look, players, you know, win championships every year, you know. It's winning consistently across time, achieving greatness. It's actually oftentimes losing and then transforming that into, you know, a lesson about how do you take the next step. So I think there's something really fascinating, but I think his alienness has a lot to do right now with his age also.
That we don't expect someone this young to be this mature. And it was like that from day one. From 19, he was talking like this.
Yeah. But, you know, like, I think this obsessiveness also, it's something to sort of watch, because you see that too. And again, we talked about it with Ramona, like the killer instinct, and how do you reconcile that with this somewhat transcendent approach to the world and this perspective. You know, one of the stories I was just remembering as Ramona was talking about Kobe again, you know, when we were making Muse, he sort of became obsessed with it, right? And we all became obsessed. He sort of created this culture where we were in the edit room at like 2 a.m, just like obsessing over little things.
You all moved down to Newport Beach.
We had to go down to Newport
Yeah.
because he got hurt a second time.
And by the way, people don't know this. You spent a year shooting Muse, and after a year, he scrapped the whole thing, and you spent the next year shooting a whole different version of Muse.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times, as I like to tell myself. But so there's this one time we're like all in the edit room at like, pretty late at night. And, we're a bunch of like film nerds in there. And I remember like we have this vision for the opening, like, oh, like maybe it should be like, Black Swan, like this great movie Darren Aronofsky made. But, it's about the sort of crazy world of obsessive ballerinas, ballet performers, dancers. And so we're talking, it's like, oh, it's just like black and white and it's kind of haunting and all this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, yeah. And like, and Kobe's there with us, right? Like, that's what had happened. Like, he was now sitting in the edit room with us. And I think I turned to him and I'm like, hey, Kobe, what do you think of that? And he's like, you know what? I haven't seen that movie. And so I was like, oh, that's really great. You should check it out. So he's like, yeah, tell me about it. So I tell him about it. And then we all like go home. And the next morning or the next day, I'm back down there. And he's like, oh, so he had said I was going to watch it overnight.
Because
Black
he doesn't sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, let me tell you. So he's like, yeah, I watched it. I know what you guys are saying. But, like I was thinking more about it. Like, maybe that other, scene from like the third scene in The Fountain, Darren Aronofsky's other, or maybe Requiem from a Dream. And then he listed like fucking 10 Darren Aronofsky movies he had watched like since the moment we left that room. Every Darren Aronofsky movie, I was like, I don't even know how you fit all the. Did you even go to the bathroom? You certainly didn't sleep. Yeah. Like he had just become so obsessed now with like, movie making and like this, master of filmmaking, storytelling, Darren Aronofsky, and he just like had this obsessive quality. Whatever the cost, whoever gets in the way. I mean, it was the way he played basketball. And again, I'm so curious now because we made that comp to Kobe to see like, is that what happens with this kid, and will he? Because that's kind of what it takes.
Yeah. Well, you see a lot of Kobe in him, and maybe Kobe is an alien in that way because that kind of preparation is foreign to us. I'm still recovering from watching Requiem from a Dream like 30 years ago or whenever I saw it. And so the fact that he was able to do it all in one night and come forward with these ideas about storytelling is amazing. Who are the other aliens? Are there other aliens like Wemby, like Kobe? Maybe not entirely, they don't have to be athletes, but who are your like top 5 aliens?
I mean, so...
And that might be different than the GOATs, right?
Yeah,
I think being an alien is different than being a GOAT.
Kobe's in there. For sure,
yeah.
Just like, I mean, I've had a lot of experience with Tom Brady, so yeah, I'm trying to take myself out of just athletes. I'm fascinated, never really worked with them, had a brief little experience with Shohei.
Oh, yeah.
And just like there's a wonkiness, obsessiveness that I think is pretty fascinating. I did have this, it's a whole different story, but like experience with Steve Wynn. And that guy was a psychopath, like is a psychopath in a good way or bad way, it depends. But, there was just like this obsession. I mean, it was like hanging out with Richard III, he's totally blind and yet he's one of the great
art collectors, right?
Yeah, visionaries. Yeah. And then, I mean, I'm doing this all from personal experience, Michael Jackson, probably the, one of the great aliens of all time.
Yeah.
And as I say this, I realize I just like listed 5 men, so that's like totally, not cool.
Yeah.
But, that's my experience. Like I've actually gotten a chance to work alongside all of those people.
Yeah. I haven't worked alongside anyone, but, I think Simone is kind of an alien. You wouldn't expect that much power out of, someone who had that story and that stature, that just a giant amongst human beings. To me, Usain Bolt, not all of us are ever going to shoot a basketball or play a game of tennis or play golf or not all of us have that experience, but all of us as human beings have run. We all know what it means to run.
Yeah.
So that is fundamental. And he's the fastest one who's ever done it in history. That like really means something that we can all in some ways relate to and then absolutely not relate to. We know how fast he is because we know what it's like to run. Not all of us know what it's like to be a shooter.
No, I've always. By the way, can I just flex for a minute and say I've worked with both, Simone and Usain, but I've always been fascinated by like the fastest person on the planet. Yeah. I mean, that's just like, for every great basketball player, Kobe, we can be like, oh, well, Jordan or LeBron, or like we can debate. You can't debate like the fastest. It's a measurable thing. That's right. I also have always been fascinated by the baddest person, the toughest person in the planet, which the heavyweight champion of the world at a certain moment in time. But a lot of people would give Ronda Rousey as like including Dana White will say, never met anybody as tough as Ronda, and she just proved it again recently. Yeah. But those two things have always been fascinating to me.
The other person who you've worked with, who I haven't, who's not an athlete, is President Obama. I always saw Obama as an alien. I mean, I worked adjacent to him. Yeah. And I know his sister very well, and I've always admired him. But he just seemed like Spock, like so cool, so grounded, never got flustered, didn't really make that many mistakes, seemed to be a great at everything, father, husband, statesman, basketball player, like seemed to do it with ease almost like Taoist, in the flow, in the zone. Yeah. And with incredible pressure and, no one has sort of gone through the grinder like he had when he went through it. And to come out with that kind of grace. And
I mean, that can't Trump total alien.
Maybe he's an alien too.
One of one.
Way. Yeah, he is definitely one of one. Unfamiliar to us, foreign to us, I think. Yeah. So, yeah. But ultimately, listen, I'm not a Spurs fan, but I'm really excited about Wemby. He has got me so excited about being a basketball fan again. I want to watch everything he does. I'm really rooting for him. I love how Buddhistic he's become, and how he models a type of spiritual genius almost, or greatness, in the same way that he models this physical greatness.
What's interesting is like, I guess maybe with LeBron it was kind of like this. You knew at the beginning something was happening. You knew, like it was like foreshadowed, or it was a prophecy. Yep. And now you got to be on the ride with it, because like people like Steph, Tom Brady, they fit a different archetype. Even Kobe, you might say, is like they were the underdog, and nobody really expected that. Yep. And then over time, now we can look back and sort of mythologize that. But the difference between, LeBron or Wemby now is like this, we've talked about like the chosen one prophecy. Yeah. Yeah. And now we get to be part of the ride, God willing, no injuries and stuff like that. I mean, it's undone other big men. Yeah. But, it seems like we're just at the beginning of something. And again, he's so self-aware, or so it seems, that he's taking us on that ride with him.
That's right.
And it's super exciting as a fan.
It's Wemby's world. Party on, Garth.
It's Wemby.